October 30th, 1970. After 10 days in Amritsar, Prabhupada was on a train heading back to Bombay. He rode in a small first-class compartment with Guru Das, while the rest of his disciples rode in another compartment of the train. Prabhupada's car, being close to the locomotive, caught soup from the engine's smokestack until he was soon flecked from head to toe with small black particles. Yamuna, we were traveling between Amritsar and Delhi, and I decided to see how Prabhupada was doing. If there was anything he wanted, because sometimes when the train stopped, he would ask for a devotee to purchase fresh fruit, and other things from the vendors on the train platform. So Kausalya and I made our way through several cars to Prabhupada's first class compartment. He was lying back on several pillows with one knee up, looking like a monarch. He had a beautiful smile on his face. We paid our obeisances, and Srila Prabhupada looked at us with a twinkle in his eye. Is there anything hot to eat? He asked. What do you mean? I said. Do you want me to get your lunch? Srila Prabhupada said, no, no, not that. Some rice, some hot rice. I said, what do you mean, Srila Prabhupada, for the train? He said, well, no, if you can make me some hot rice. I said I would. I had no idea how I was going to prepare hot rice for Srila Prabhupada. But Kausalya and I found our way to the kitchen. Nobody was there, only two men dressed in black, turmeric stained shorts, standing over the coal smoking cigarettes. I didn't know how to speak Hindi, but I said the best I could. My Guru Maharaj wants some chow, some hot rice. The man laughed at us as if we were crazy. But as I thought, we had better find someone who would give us permission. But when we found the manager of the restaurant, he said, no, impossible. You cannot cook in the kitchen. I said, I'm sorry. This is for my Guru Maharaj. There is no question of choice. I have said to him, I will fix rice and I have to fulfill this. But again, he said, no, it is not, it is impossible. I went and found the conductor of the train and explained the situation to him. If we cannot do this for my spiritual master, I said, then I might as well jump off the train. The conductor took us very seriously and said, of course, you can fix whatever you like in the kitchen. So he brought us back to the kitchen and told the head of the kitchen as the head of the restaurant that he was giving us permission. The coal stove was gigantic and I was completely unfamiliar with it. All sorts of aluminum pots and dishes were hanging around the kitchen. We cleaned out one of the pots as best as we could, boiled the water, and put in the chow. We prepared a gigantic platter of very hot rice with butter, fresh lemon, salt, and pepper, and carried it through the train to Prabhupada's compartment. Here's your rice, Srila Prabhupada, I said as we entered, and his eyes lit up and opened wide. He gave a huge grin. Oh my goodness, of fortune have come. He said, goddesses of fortune have come. They have brought me my rice. Thank you very much. This is just what I wanted. He ate so much from this huge plate. He took a little kid kachori and puri with it and a little pickle. He was very pleased. That night, the train pulled into the New Delhi station with its scurrying crowds of passengers, hawking vendors, refreshment counters, newsstands, and beggars and coolies in their dingy red jackets. The stopover would be 20 minutes. Suddenly, a man appeared in Prabhupada's compartment, identifying himself as D.D. Gupta. Although Prabhupada had not met him before, they had corresponded. He was a Delhi man, not specially influential or wealthy, but he wanted to help. Offering Prabhupada a box of sweets, he invited him to stay in Delhi. Prabhupada, however, already had other plans and had even wired ahead to notify the devotees in Bombay of his arrival. Prabhupada looked over at Guru Das, who was feeling very happy and especially blessed to have this intimate contact with his spiritual master. 12 hours they had spent in the same compartment, eating together, just talking together. Just minutes before, Prabhupada had been stressing the importance of farming and explaining how the scarcity of food was due to mismanagement, not to lack of rain or arable land. Gurudas was happy and he was looking forward to the next leg of the journey with Prabhupada, anticipating the scenery and his return to Bombay. This man is inviting us, Prabhupada said. Get down and see what you can do. Get down. There was hardly any time to ask questions or discuss what to do in Delhi. The train would be leaving immediately. Gurudas said he would stay, but he would need help. He and Prabhupada agreed on a team. Yamuna, Gurudas's wife, Giriraj, Durlabha, Bruce, and Gopal. Gurudas ran to tell his wife and the brahmacharis the news. The devotees had little trouble picking up their light bags and getting off the train, but they felt sad to be leaving Srila Prabhupada. As the train pulled away, they offered obeisances outside Prabhupada's window and waved to him, praying for his mercy. This was an austerity, perhaps a tiny drop of what Prabhupada had gone through when he had first arrived in America. Bombay, November 1917. For the next month, Prabhupada and his disciples stayed at Manohar Lal Agarwal's Sita Ram temple in Chembur. Actually, it was Mr. Agarwal's residence. But since he maintained the worship of Sitaram deities, he called his home Rama Sharanam, under the shelter of Lord Ram. Prabhupada occupied one room and his disciples two other rooms, with access to a kitchen and bath. The Sitaram temple and the suburban neighborhood provided a peaceful atmosphere, and Prabhupada returned to the concentrated work on Srimad Bhagavatam, corresponding with ISKCON centers around the world and looking after the small group of disciples who were with him. He had great hope Krishna would provide a way for ISKCON to become well established in India. We are just now receiving great publicity, and he reported that Bombay has now got its atmosphere filled with Krishna consciousness. It is a fact that the important members of the Bombay community were appreciating our movement. For the present, I am more prominent than all Swamis. People are appreciating. What are these Swamis? They cannot go outside. There is a Bengali saying that a jackal is a king in a small forest. The story is that a jackal became a king in the forest by fooling other animals for some time. But he remained always a jackal, and his ruse was at last exposed. Although Mr. Agarwal had honored that Prabhupada had accepted his invitation and was now living as his guest, Prabhupada knew that the situation would ultimately prove inconvenient for everyone involved. To open one's home to a dozen guests and feed them daily was a strain, even for a wealthy man, and for the devotees to live in these sickness and the topical heat was not easy. The solution, of course, was for devotees to get their own place, an ISKCON center in Bombay. As a sannyasi, Prabhupada was preparing to stay anywhere, moving as often as necessary, accepting alms. He had lived that way for years before going to America. But now he had 20 spiritual children to support in India and more on the way. They were not mature. He wanted them near him so that they could observe what he did, things, and imbibe the spirit of preaching in India. When a Hindu organization in downtown Bombay requested a few devotees to attend a 3-day program, Prabhupada approved. But when the program was over and the leaders of the organization invited the devotees to stay on indefinitely, Prabhupada said no. They will simply eat and sleep. Better for them to stay with him at crowded Ramasharanams. Mrs. Sumati Morarji, the wealthy director of the Scindia ship line, had financed the printing of the third volume of Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam in 1964. And in 1965, she had provided him a free passage to America. Now she invited Prabhupada to speak at the Scindia House near Juhu Beach. Seated on stage, Prabhupada and Sumati Morarji reminiscing, celebrating Prabhupada's success. I did not think that you would come back alive, Mrs. Morarji said, but I am so much pleased to see you. No longer was Prabhupada the poor sadhu Mrs. Morarji had met 6 years ago. He was a success. And Sumati Morarji and her staff and friends were happy to hear that the Krishna consciousness movement in the West. Before Prabhupada's lecture, Tamal Krishna formally introduced him to the audience. He met Dr. C. Bali and his wife, the famous dancer and movie actress Vaijayanti Mala. He spoke only briefly with them and they became life members of ISKCON. Vaijayanti Mala. Swami Prabhupada made his preaching so simple that even a layman would understand what our great philosophy and our great teachings meant. Not only was he propagating the great culture of Lord Krishna, but he was making the people of other parts of the world really understand its meaning and its significance. By simple and yet very great teachings of Krishna, he took this message so far and so wide that it's really a marvel.